Have you ever received advice from someone that maybe didn't make a whole lot of sense at the time, but later in life you thought, this is what she was talking about? We're going to talk about it today for Mother's Day. Yo, I'm Adrienne, a longtime Florida realtor, and I'm here to help you get your Florida life. Happy Wednesday, everyone. If you're new here, new videos come out every Wednesday. Please subscribe to follow along. Sunday is Mother's Day, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to pass along some advice from my mother. I wanted to do this for two reasons. First, if you don't know, my mother sold real estate in Charlotte County here in Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, from 1983 till she retired in 2005. A little brag here, for most of those years, my mother was the top selling real estate agent in the area. And this was before teams. She had an assistant, but it was all her. She did it all. So her advice when it comes to real estate in particular is quite backed up with experience, I'll say that. Also, I wanted to do it because it is Mother's Day coming up, and I can tell you I have gotten my mother many different gifts over the years. And the thing I think she wants the most every year is for me to publicly admit that she was right about some things. So we're gonna do that today. Don't get more public than the internet, and we'll talk about how she was right, and also the moments in my career that I thought this is what she was talking about when she said that all these years. Let's start with the first piece of advice I've heard my mother say so many times. Some people cannot ask for the money. You may have heard this in business or sales. If you've heard it before, I'd love to hear your opinion on it. I heard it most of my life, and there was one deal where I thought, this is exactly what my mother was talking about. I'm going to tell you the story. Back in 2021, when the market was crazy, I had buyers offer on $1 million house. The seller of this house was doing something called a limited service listing. In some areas, they call it a flat fee listing. Basically, she paid a realtor to put it on the MLS, to put it out there, but then they had something called a no brokerage relationship. The realtor doesn't give her advice. The realtor doesn't negotiate with it for her. She just has somebody put it on the market. In this case, she offered a compensation to the buyer's agent. That's often why they put it on the MLS, to say, hey, I'll pay you to bring a buyer, but I'm not getting listing agent help here. And they don't have to pay the listing side. Usually they pay something for the flat fee, but not the same kind of commission. I don't know what she paid. So in those instances, the buyer's agent just talks to the seller directly. I have buyers offering on this property. I call the seller up, said, I sent you an offer. She said, oh, I already have an offer. I said, okay. And then she looked at it and she told me, oh, they're very close. I said, okay, what do you want me to do? And typically in this scenario, a listing agent would say, okay, we're taking highest and best by, next week at 5 o'clock or whatever. I was waiting for her to tell me that. Now keep in mind, I cannot advise her, because I cannot say to her, oh, do you want my customers to give you more money? Like, I can't up the offer for my buyers or insinuate that my buyers are going to up the offer, anything. So I just have to kind of sit there and listen to her direction. Took her a little while to figure out what she wanted to do next. And then she asked my buyers to write a letter. She said, I'm going to take a letter from each offer telling, why you should get the house. The buyers in this scenario, the woman worked in finance. She was a very strong woman. I told her, I said, I don't think this woman, she's asking you for a letter, but I think she wants money is what she wants, because that's what most people want. I mean, even when you're listening to the story, don't you think, does she want a letter or does she want more money? And I told the buyer, I said, I can't bring this up to her because I can't sell you out. I mean, I told the buyer everything. I said, but I think this is what's happening here. And the buyer, who again would very much ask for the money and couldn't imagine not asking for the money, said to me, we're not going to give her any more money. If she wants a letter, we're going to write a letter. We have good credentials. We're good people. I don't really love these letters. I don't know many realtors who do, for many reasons, but one, on a basic level in this scenario, my anticipation is everybody's going to say good things about themselves. So how's it going to, how are you going to pan this out? Anyway, so my people wrote the letter. I sent it over. The seller calls me a little while later and says, I'm very sorry. I picked the other offer. And I said, can I ask why? And she said, the offers were exactly the same. I didn't know what to do. So I picked the other offer because it came in first and I thought that was fair. Called my buyers back, told them what happened, and they said, call her back and tell her we'll give her $50,000 more. I hang up the phone, call her back as fast as I can. My buyers will give you $50,000. Again, a long pause. She says to me, I can't do anything. I already signed everything. It's already done. I don't know if you've ever been on the phone with somebody when you tell them they just lost out on $50,000, but it has stuck with me. I never met this woman. I don't even know what she looks like, but I always think of her when I think of somebody who cannot ask for the money. I would tell you all, if you're thinking to yourself, I think I could ask for the money, how hard could it be? Know that a lot of people can't. I see it all the time in more minor instances. It's often what we do as realtors. We're kind of this neutral phase. I've never worked with a realtor who couldn't ask for the money. Even the worst listing agents I've ever worked with would have asked for highest and best in this scenario or asked for something monetary, not a letter. This brings me to my second piece of advice from my mother. Be careful whose advice you take. Be careful who you listen to. She would always bring this up mainly because of the Today Show and the experts, the real estate experts they had on there. The internet was definitely around, but it wasn't like it is now. So if you wanted real estate advice, you often watched some expert on the Today Show, or the nightly news was still a big thing. And her point was always these experts always come out of big cities, which I see to this day. Even when you look at on the internet, sometimes you get big city realtors talking about real estate because they have a bigger following. The algorithms like them more, which is totally fine, but it's different. Real estate is very local and their advice may not be something that you should listen to depending on where you are. The other part of this, I think about this woman all the time, again, because I was on this terrible phone call with her, but I imagine her going out into the world and telling people that she saved money on the listing commission because she did this limited service listing. She was offering out 2.5% to the buyer's agent. Let's pretend she offered the same to a listing agent. She would have still netted $25,000 more because, again, any listing agent I have ever worked with would have said, we're going to do highest and best. I mean, it was a time period too when that's all that was being done all the time. Also, she only had 2 offers on this property, which sometimes happened, but who knows? Who knows how much she missed out on? So when you hear this advice, just know that you may not be getting the whole story from people. I have even known realtors, experienced realtors. One in particular comes to mind all the time. He was kind of this cocky guy I knew who had been selling real estate forever. And when he went to sell his own property, he hired another agent that we both knew. And I thought, wow, I'm surprised that you did this. And he said to me, I can negotiate all day for other people, but when it comes to myself, I get too emotional, I get too involved, so I'm hiring it out. And I thought, wow, if he'll do it, that just tells you that everybody is different and everybody has different skills. When you hear their advice, keep in mind who you are and where you're buying and what you're thinking, instead of just this very generalized information. Which brings me to number 3, and that is something I hear from her to this day all the time, and that is hire someone. Now, I'm not going to get into, you should hire a realtor. It's obvious that I think that if you're coming to Punta Gorda and Port Charlotte, you should hire me. We're going to talk about DIYing, because that is something that has become just bigger and bigger out in the world. And I'm not saying you should not DIY anything. You just need to be realistic about what you DIY and how this could help or hurt you in real estate. If it is a cosmetic basic paint, you need to change out a faucet. I have changed out a faucet, that's why I bring that up. You can learn that on YouTube. I love YouTube. I've learned to do a lot of stuff on YouTube, but you need to keep in mind first some basic laws. You cannot replace a roof in the state of Florida unless you are a licensed contractor. There's no reason for you to be getting up on your roof unless you are a licensed contractor in Florida. We have drones these days. That's more of a safety thing. I've known several people to fall off ladders, fall off their roofs. Let that go when you move to Florida. Let somebody else do it. Follow the law. Also, I see a lot of people DIYing things. I notice that DIYers often are very mechanically inclined, but not always cosmetically inclined. Now, you should know that my mother's father, my grandfather, who I was very close to, my mom always tells the story that when they first got color TV, he built it and he never put the sides on the TV. It was just a color TV they could watch in the 60s. And he was one of my favorite people in the world. So if you're a mechanical person, more power to you. However, when you go to sell your house, just telling people that, oh, it doesn't look that great, but it works, is going to work against you. And I'm going to give you an example of the craziest DIY thing I think I've ever seen. That was a guy built an elevator in his house. It was a 2-story house. I'm quite sure it was not permitted. I don't even know the laws on this. I never sold the house. He did ask me if I wanted to go in it. I did not go in it because I could see how he nailed together the wood panels. I mean, I could see the nails, which realistically every elevator I've probably ever been in has wood nailed together, but I don't, they finish it off. I don't know how they do it, but I don't have to think about somebody putting it together like that. I never got in this elevator. I never sold the house. I also never went to the hospital or had the fire department have to pull me out of the elevator. And maybe it worked great. But keep in mind that's going to work against you in resale. It is worth hiring somebody. I do keep a list of vendors. If you need something done and you want a recommendation, I will put a link below. I'm happy to help in any way I can. Number 4. Now this one's one of my favorites because I have heard this since I was so little. Probably inappropriate to be telling such a little kid this. The way my mother would put it is, if you kids fight over my estate after I'm gone, I will come back and haunt you. I mean, I can remember being like 8 years old and hearing this, which I had no idea what she was talking about. But now as a real estate agent in Florida, I see it all the time. I'm trying to get an estate attorney to come on here and answer some basic questions in the next couple of weeks. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. What I see the problem more is sort of this rumor that Florida is full of these estates that people are just trying to dump. If you're waiting for that to happen, you can wait a very long time. I will give you an example from my own career. I once sold a house to sisters. The one sister was getting the family silver. The other was selling a house. I'm sure there was more involved in this, but when it came to closing, the sister that was selling that had to sign for the house, had to sign the closing papers for the house. Now, granted, she's going to get $500,000 when she signs this. The house was worth probably like $585 at the time. So she's going to get around $500 and something thousand. She did not want to sign because she thought it was unfair. The other sister was getting the family silver, which could not have been worth anywhere $1,000. I don't even know. I never saw it, but it was this big knockdown, drag out fight. It always fascinates me. We did get it signed, we did get it closed, but it was much more of an uphill battle than you always hear about these people dumping estates in Florida. There are people who I believe make it their full-time job to write letters to people who have estates or who have had somebody recently pass. I imagine that is a full-time job because I don't know how they get anywhere with that. That being said, I also see buyers sitting around hearing of these rumors, waiting, and kind of wasting their life waiting for this great opportunity that I see very little of in real life. So that's advice from my mother. If you have questions, I'd love to hear them. Any comments, put them below. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next week.